this is Mr. Blue, our 1969 Ford F100. He has a 240 cubic inch straight six, 3-speed on the column, and we call him Mr. Blue because, as you can see, his original factory color was Aqua Reef. This also has the twin I-beam front suspension, which, if you look, I'll show you. The reason why it's called that is because you see there's two beams that go to each kingpin, and they are on pivots. You see a big bolt on both sides, and they just go up. They just go up and down. Anyway, they are on bushings. The I-beams are, and so are these control arms. And as you can tell, I don't know if you can see it that well, but they are completely shot. They're just gone. I'm pretty sure these were the original bushings that came with the truck from 1969. I wanted to show you the severity of how bad these kingpins are. I don't know if you can hear it, but they're really, really bad. And they've been on this truck for over 50 years. Anyway, so we got new bushings, got new kingpins. So we're gonna have to take the spindles, send them off to a machine shop to have the new bushings reamed out. And we got, like I said, new bushings, new rubber bushings, and we got completely new ball joints for all the steering, and new arms and everything. So pretty much most of the steering, all the steering is going to be brand new, all the bushings are going to be brand new. It's going to pretty much drive like a brand new truck. We were going to get new shock absorbers, but they were on back order, and I found some that someone gave to us that are still good, so I'll just put those on there and we'll see how that goes. But what I'm going to try to do is get as much of this apart, and I'm just going to tear everything down to where there's nothing left, and then we'll put all the new parts on, put it back together, and hopefully it'll drive really well. So this is the passenger side of the truck, and as you can see, I have it all the way down to a bare spindle. And there's the brake drum, there's the backing plate with all the brakes, and I did this to where I wouldn't have to crack open the brake lines, and we would have lost brake pressure. We would have lost, we would have gotten air in the system, and we would have had to bled the brakes, and just, more hassle than we had to go through. So what I did is I took off the drum, I, got it exposed, all four of those nuts, and then just took them off on the back. And as you can see, I got I don't know what it's called, but what it does is it bolts to the back of it, as you can see, kind of like this, right there, and that's how it turns. Only this goes on the bottom. It's more like that. Anyway, and as you can see, this is just the bare spindle with the kingpin. And if you listen, you can hear all that play. I don't know if you can see it either. I'm trying to hold you as still as possible. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a bunch of play. And then also, if you look down there, might be able to see it, and there's also a lot of up and down play. I'm sorry, even worse, but this is my progress, and as you can see, there are these nuts that go on the top. like access, and that's where the grease fittings fit in. As you can see, there's a bunch of grease in there. That's really old grease. I greased this thing once a while back, but that was around when it started doing this, so I didn't bother greasing it anymore because I knew they were gonna be bad anyway. So also, if you look, the bottom one has gone out first. The top one is actually kind of tight. It's really the bottom one, the bottom bushing down here. That's really the one that went bad. I don't know. I don't know if you can see that, but there's just a lot of play in it. So I'm going to get the bottom bushing out, the little cap, and then if you look on this side, there's a nut. That nut, it's covered in grease and grime and whatnot, but there's a nut. If your damn camera would focus. That nut right there, you take it out, then it pushes out a wedged pin. Where are you? There you are. There's the nut. That thing. That's a nut. It's covered in grease. And then it has a wedged pin that what it does with a groove in it. And I don't know if you can see it. But on this side, there's it's right here. Anyway, like I said, it's a pin. You drive it out, and that is what holds the kingpin itself inside the beam. As you can see, I've been doing some more work. This is a couple of days later after the previous clip. And I've actually already gotten half of it done, but I still wanted to show how it is done. And actually what I'll do is I'll go around back, because as you can see, I got that side completely out. There is no longer any suspension. And I'll show you what it looks like. And this is what it is. There's the I-beam. There's the bushing, or what was left of the bushing. We are replacing these bushings. That's why we're doing this. And there's the whole I-beam. That's the radius control arm. There's your coil spring. That's where the shock mounts. And as you can see, there's your spindle right there at the end with the kingpins in it. There's a little plate that went over the coil spring, and it bolted to the top of there's a little, where the top of the spring rests, there's two bolts. You undo those bolts, the little plate comes down, and that's what frees it from the upper bit of the suspension. So you got to do that too. And if you do that and undo the shock, like I did, the whole entire beam will drop. And like I said, you got to undo this 1 1/8 nut, the cotter pin. Got to take out the cotter pin, undo the nut, and that's so you can slide this out. And then there's another big, it's a nut and a bolt, and you undo that from this side, and then the whole thing will be drooping a lot. And you got to take this and you just got to pry it out. I mean, sometimes, because they're going to be really rusted in there, so you just got to get a pry bar or a screwdriver, or you know, like I did, a big pry bar, because that's what it's meant to do. You just got to pry it out. You got to beat on it. It's going to take some work, but do that and the whole entire thing comes out. You slide it out from under the truck, and I'll show you over here in the front. You can see there's one pivot for the driver's side. As you can see, I took out the nut and the bolt. See how it's drooping a lot because I unbolted the shock absorber. There's the top of the spring, and there's the nut back here. Okay, so I just pulled out the left front beam, this front beam that connects to the left tire. And it was quite a bit of work. You just had to do a lot of prying to get the beam out of its little carrier. And here's the bushings. This is why we're doing this. You see this? This is supposed to be a whole sleeve, and half of it is just gone. This other end, it's not terrible, but still it's really bad. See, that's supposed to all be just flat, but it's not. And these would have mated. And this was the bushing for the control arm. It went on the end right here. This is the radius arm, and that would sit right there. Actually, see? It goes on right there like that. You put this into its little carrier, put that on, and that's what it would have been like. Like I said, it goes up into that hole right there. And that's supposed to be a bushing. And the same thing for the other end of the I-beam. If you look, this is the pivot bushing. Hold on. That's the pivot bushing. It's really bad. Actually, this centerpiece, I could just take it right out. This is supposed to be molded to the rubber. The rubber, it should not just free float like that. And you see the rubber is just very much gone. There's nothing in there anymore. There's a little bit still. But that's why we're doing this, because these rubbers are really bad and are kingpins. Let's see if I can't. So this is upside down. This is the bottom. That's the top. And you can actually see the gap. You see? That's not supposed to be there. All that is supposed to be tight. You see that gap at the bottom? Opening and closing? I mean, this whole thing, it's really bad. And that's why we're doing this. Also, we got brand new front shocks, because old ones are really bad. They're probably the original shocks. These right here. They're just, there's nothing left to them. And these rubber bumpers. Anyway, that's how you pull it apart. It's not that hard. It just takes a lot of hard work. And we're actually going to take this whole beam to the machine shop and have them press out the kingpins, because I tried and I just can't get them out. We're going to have them press out the kingpins, and we're going to leave the spindles with them and the kingpins, the new ones. We're going to leave that with them so that they can take the spindles, press out the old bushings, put in the new ones, ream them out, and give them the kingpin to test it, make sure it's all lined up. And we're going to do all the bushing stuff ourselves. We have it's a ball joint puller press, but you can make it work for these bushings. Anyway, that's how we took it apart, and then later on I will show you, after we get it back from the machine shop, how these kingpins go together and how to put it all back together.